Okay, everyone, give yourselves a big pat on the back or a round of applause. You've done it. You've made it to week 8. Just 1 week left, and we are done with this course. And to those of you who this is your last session, maybe your last course, congratulations on finishing. To those of you who are moving on, I hope you get a little bit of a mental break before you begin your classes on Monday. The good news is, because we have things due a little bit earlier this week, you have a few days to kind of just clear your head before Monday when your next class begins. Remember this week that your capstone project is due on Friday. Your final reflection and your final quiz are due Saturday. And that gives me a few days to get your work graded and back to you before we as instructors have to submit your final grades on Monday. They don't give us very much time to get that done. So last week of class, as I warned in the first week, we have a quick week this last week, which is one of the reasons why I make week 7 a very light week for you. So hopefully you are well on your way with these projects. Okay, please also note that you will need to complete your course evaluation prior to attempting your quiz, as you will need to submit proof of completion for credit on the quiz. So all you have to do for half the points on this quiz is submit your course eval. You can submit a screenshot or a PDF of your completion page. So we have a final journal or final reflection, and it's some reflections on the course. What has been your most eye-opening experience in taking this class and why? Is there any constructive feedback you have? You know how these journals work. I'm looking for a page, double-spaced. Okay, let's just make sure, again, we have talked about the quiz. Make sure you do your course eval before, as I just stated. And these are anonymous, so you just need to submit your completion page. Do not submit your actual course evaluation to me. And that should be relatively quick. That should only take you 2 to 5 minutes tops. You'll notice that there are instructions here on submitting your critical assignment or your capstone project, same thing. So if you've been with the OPS program for a while, you know that just recently we've changed the way we do this final assignment. And so there's instructions, and then if you look here on your list, it's going to show you directions for submitting your critical assignment and then where to submit it. So you will click on these individual items for that. If we go to right and we go to our capstone project here, where are we? There we go. There's instructions here. Again, remember this is due Friday night at midnight. This is the prompt for you, and I've been as detailed here as I can. We've talked a decent amount about Francis Schaeffer already. Really nice job on your journals from this week, by the way. I did go ahead and grade those. Some interesting feedback on Fujimura and this whole idea of abstract art and kind of the transparency we expect with Christian art. And I really enjoyed reading those, so well done there. Okay, so by now you will have read the essay, Some Perspectives on Art. This is a 10 to 12 page paper. I'm looking for 10 to 12 pages of text, not 6.5 or 8 pages of text with images thrown in and formatting. I want good, solid 10 to 12 pages of text, no more, no less. And you're going to be doing your 3 case studies. We talked about this last week. So you will know by now that Schaeffer offers 11 different perspectives on how to understand a work of art. And you are selecting 3 of these to do a case study on. Once you've selected your 3 perspectives, you're going to begin researching artists and works of art that illustrate each perspective. Again, chosen artists must be from the 20th or 21st centuries. We're contemporary visual arts and culture after all. These do not need to be Christian artists. So I've given you some sources that you might want to browse through for inspiration, and these will be good places to find works of art that, again, make sure you pick artists that you're going to be able to do ample research on. You're new to writing about art. I don't expect you to pick something really obscure, that you have a lot of background information and knowledge on the art world, that you can, know how to, kind of pull ideas in for all of this. So it's okay to pick very iconic, well-known works of art for this. Again, I've given you that link, What is a Case Study, if that will help you out. So each case study, this is what I'm looking for. Think of this as 3 mini papers. So it will help you when you're doing that 10 to 12 pages to think, okay, I need about 3.5 pages per case study. And then per case study, you can break it down even further from there. Okay, I want half a page of introduction. I want 2.5 pages of analysis, and I want half a page of conclusion. This always helps me. And why I have you do the outline earlier in the class with the theory application papers, it helps me when I'm writing to plan out how I'm going to structure my papers. I really appreciate it when you're formatting these if you break them up into individual case studies. So I want a strong introduction to the perspective being studied, including a direct quotation from the text, i.e. a work of art has value in itself. This is where you will tell your reader why Schaeffer believed this perspective to be true. So you can use supporting evidence from Schaeffer, and if you do any outside sources, you might want to research how other scholars and theologians, perhaps, have interpreted this perspective or interpreted Schaeffer in general. You want an introduction to the image used in the case study. Think of your reader, as being someone who has never seen this image before. What would be important for them to understand about this artist and this image? And the antithesis to that is, what do you not need to include? You don't need to give all the citation information in the body of your text. That goes with the image caption, right? So think about what your reader might need to understand about this work that is going to really speak to your case study. Use Panofsky's intrinsic level to give your reader context to the image. Note, I just say the intrinsic level. I don't say the natural or primary or the conventional or secondary. So just that intrinsic level. Don't walk through all of Panofsky, because in my mind, you're taking away from the rest of what I want you to be talking about by talking about things that I'm not asking you to discuss. So just that intrinsic level to give your reader some context to the image. Why was this image created? What does it mean for the artist who created it? This is where, of course, you want to include some outside research in that intrinsic level. We're looking outside the picture frame. You want to make sure you include the actual image being discussed, captioned with the full image citation, including the artist's name, title of work, year created, medium, full web source. Now, you can do this in the body of each case study, or you can do an image supplement or appendix at the end of your paper. Doesn't matter to me how you want to format it. To be honest, I think it's nicer when it's right there in the case study. That way, someone who's reading it doesn't have to scroll all the way to the end of the paper and to reference the image and keep going back and forth. That way, that's just kind of right there in what you're discussing to be referenced. So you really want to include an assessment of how this image is a good example of the perspective being discussed. So this is the culminating point of your case study. Everything you're discussing, this introduction to the image, this whole idea of introducing the perspective and what Schaeffer's saying, this whole contextual discussion of the image, of the artwork, all of this is leading up to this culminating point, how this image is a good example of the perspective being discussed. This is the aha moment. Don't overlook it. Include supporting evidence from the text and any appropriate outside sources to support your position. And the last part of each case study is a personal reflection on why you find this artwork powerful or thought-provoking. Here and here only is it appropriate to use first-person narrative voice. So when you're formatting this, you may want to format it according to each case study, break it up, give big subtitles to each case study, and then you can break it up further within the body of that case study and kind of divide it up so that your reader understands that you're changing voice here. So each case study, I'm looking for a minimum of 3 outside sources. One of those in each case study can be Schaeffer, which means you would do Schaeffer and then 2 other sources for each case study. So that's 2, 4, 6 sources plus Schaeffer is 7. So that means minimum you're looking at 7 sources that I'm going to be looking for in your works cited section. Formatting guide, either MLA or APA. I don't care which one you use, just pick one and be consistent. Images, please no smaller than about 4 inches or so in size. Sometimes students will give this little tiny thumbnail of an image on their paper, and it's just really hard to see. So make sure you give a nice sized image for your reader to look at and include that caption. I want a strong introduction to the paper. So I would do an introduction first before you even start your case studies, talking about what this whole paper as a whole is going to be about. And then I want a strong conclusion after that last case study. Don't finish your paper with that third personal reflection in that third case study. You want to wrap up the whole concept of the paper as a whole, okay? Finish strong. So you want to really consider how Schaeffer is a useful tool for looking at art from a Christian perspective. Again, we know that we want 7 sources. So we talked about how we would break those up. Your paper must include in-text citations of all information, directly quoted or paraphrased. When in doubt, do an in-text citation. Use footnotes or endnotes accordingly. This tells your readers where specifically the information in your paper is coming from, and you can reference the style guides I've given above for how to do those. Your paper must not use first-person narrative voice except in that personal reflection section. That's why I think it's a good idea to format it where you break up the individual sections and give them all subtitles so that your reader understands that you're changing voice here. And last but certainly not least, proofread. Proofread your paper for grammar, formatting, spelling errors before submitting. We're an upper division course. Your writing should reflect this. If you struggle with writing papers, you may want to consider submitting the paper to Smart Thinking before submitting it for a grade. You can find a link to the a link to the Smart Thinking by going into Blackboard, selecting Tutoring Online, and I think I've shown you where this is before. Yours would be let's see, Course Tools, Student Resources. Oh no, sorry, Tutoring Online, my goodness. It's right there, Tutoring Online. That's where we want to reference that right there. And note though that I can't let you submit the paper really any later because our final grades are due on Monday. So while papers in the past, if you used the Tutoring Online tab and they didn't get it back to you, in time, I was willing to work out extensions, but here I literally cannot, my hands are tied because I have to submit your final grades on Monday. So that is your paper. Be sure that you download and take a look at the rubric as well. I've broken it down into how the points will break up. So we're going to look at formatting and organization. I'm going to look at that works cited section. I'm going to look at the introduction to your paper. I'm going to break up each case study and analyze how well you've really incorporated Schaeffer's ideas, how well you've included the selected artworks and talked about Panofsky. I'm going to look at your personal reflection, and so I will walk through each case study. So this is how all the points are going to break down, and then you will notice at the very end, I'm going to look at the conclusion as a whole. So don't overlook that introduction and that conclusion because you do receive points there. So we have our quiz, which half of it is just doing your course eval. You have your capstone project due, and you have that final reflection on the class. Remember that your capstone is due Friday at midnight. Your final reflection and your quiz are due Saturday at midnight. Again, I want to thank you. You've been an excellent group of students. I've really enjoyed working with you. I hope that you've enjoyed the class. And stay in touch, and I'm really looking forward to reading your capstone projects, and have a great week and have a really nice 4th of July, everyone.